Is this time different for the silver price and the gold price? Are we indeed moving into this new paradigm? I've got a lot to cover with you in this video, but two big key fundamental things that we need to realize about the silver market and gold market going on right now, right before our very eyes. One of them has to do with very recent developments, and one has to do with something that's been developing over the decades, but everybody seems to forget about, both of which will lend huge support for the silver price and the gold price as we head into the coming months, quarters, and years. And we're going to do that together because we are basement dwellers. Sorry. When you come to the basement to join me, you're going to be referred to as a basement dweller, like our friend Annie Oakley, who I see on here with us this morning. We're all basement dwellers. We love the precious metals, and we want to navigate these waters together. But we're going to talk about the safe haven status of gold and silver, why that is changing, and what that means for the price in the future. I got a little bit I want to talk to you about the Fed, our old friend Jerome Powell at the Federal Reserve. We haven't talked about him for a little while. Things are changing at the Fed that are going to result in big changes in the silver and gold market, so you stick with me, okay? Basement dweller, we're going to cover that. We got some news about massive fines against Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan Chase. We're going to cover that because those are the same people that manipulate the price of silver and gold down, 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 suppress, tamp down, whatever we want to call it. You know, poo-poo it. That's as dirty as we get on this channel. So we have some sophisticated information as well that we'll discuss because occasionally we like to become, educated and sophisticated here in the basement. From the Penn Wharton University of Pennsylvania School of Business about the bomb about to go off in the U.S. economy. We're going to talk about that. Do you want more? I got more. We've got that little secret that nobody's talking about, okay? Nobody's talking about. Let's start with this. Obviously, there's a ton of horrible things going on in the world right now. I got a comment on one of my videos about, oh, you're so happy because of this war and because silver and gold are going up. And I want to make it real clear right now to everybody who's watching and everybody out there, I do not like war. Sure, I like when the price of gold and silver go up, absolutely. But I'm not in favor of it happening on the back of war. We didn't create that situation, none of us, right? I don't think anybody, I know you well enough. You're not a violent person that wants to see any type of the horrific tragedies that are occurring right now in the world because of war. So let's make that real clear. I don't like war. I'm sure you don't either. And I would appreciate other people that maybe aren't full-fledged basement dwellers recognize that as well. But there is a ton going on. Oh my gosh. And we're going to cover it right now. But first, we got 100 thumbs up. It's time for the big bell. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Man, that bell is loud. Thank you for the thumbs up. That's a tradition that we will continue here in the basement. I want to paint a picture for you. Think about this. Think about what if 5 years ago, I had told you what was going to occur over the next 5 years. That would be what, 2018? Sometimes I don't do well with math in my head. 2018, you and I are hanging out, okay? It was before Ron's Basement was really a thing. We weren't really basement dwellers yet, but we just met each other at a coffee shop and we were talking, and I said, over the next 5 years, I think we're going to have this C-19 crisis, this health crisis, where they're going to lock everybody in their houses, the world's going to shut down, they're going to print 40% of the US dollars that were ever printed in like a 16-month period. This is 2018, we're talking, okay? I loved gold and silver. Did you love gold and silver back then? Basement dweller? Well, Well, we're talking, it's 5 years ago. I told you about C-19, told you about all the money that was printed. Then I tell you, you're not going to believe this. But what if the national debt of the United States goes up to $34 trillion? What if 5 years ago I told you there's going to be a full-fledged war? I always say it wrong. I don't know which one it is. Susie gets mad at me. She'll probably throw something at me when I go upstairs. But war in Europe. And then I told you that we were going to have this tragic war going on in the Middle East. More Israelis killed than any other time in history. A massive war. Would you have believed me? Okay, but what about the silver and gold price? This is 5 years ago. And I told you all this that was going on. That silver production was actually going to be lower in 2023 than it is in the 2018 version of you. Yes, you. Silver production's down. What do you think the silver price? We would think that we would have 50, 60, triple digit silver. We would think that we would have $3,000, $4,000 gold, right? Isn't it just crazy? That's the context of what we're dealing with right now in this world. And we've talked about this. Look, we talked, and I have a magic 8-ball. Can you see it right there by my finger? These two monitors are screwing me up. And there's a crystal ball somewhere as well. We didn't predict what was going to go on in Israel, but months ago, we said, guys, the world is getting crazier and crazier, more delicate, more fragile. The world is becoming multipolar. It used to be unipolar. Right? The United States ruled the roost. Now that's changing. New York Times article yesterday pointed out that very fact. We are living through right now one of the most dramatic periods of change that any of us have ever experienced. It's happening right now. And we said things are going to be, number one, more extreme, right? Events, crisis that unfold. Did we just see a major crisis just 3-4 days ago in Israel? Yes, right? They're going to happen. They're going to be bigger, but they're also going to happen more frequently. Unfortunately, we don't like it. We don't like the war. We don't like the war in Europe. We don't like people, any of these things that are unfolding. But we can't necessarily, we can do our little parts, right? We can be the change we want to see in the world, but we don't. These big events aren't necessarily of our doing, but we want to be prepared with silver and gold. Now, I'm going to give you one of the big, cool things right now. Blow your mind. Whoop-de-doo. Kicker, whatever you want to call it, okay? A basement dweller double feature. Big things that you can be happy about right now when it comes to holding silver and gold. Right now, within that context of, like I said, everything becoming so much more difficult. There's a factor that I hadn't thought of, that you likely hadn't thought of either. Now, I want to give credit to who I learned this from, right? And I'm not promoting other channels, but Vince Lachey was on Arcadia Economics. I love Chris Marcus. I love Arcadia Economics, and I really have learned so much from this guy, Vince Lachey. He said something yesterday that is, I believe, very good news for you, silver investors, gold investors, platinum investors, any precious metal investor as well. We've got big trouble in the Middle East. Absolutely, right? Big situation, unfolding, tragedy. Absolutely. Usually, in the past, when those things happen, when we lived in, remember, we used to be in a unipolar world. Everybody would rush to the U.S. dollar. Everybody would rush to U.S. Treasury bonds. But now that the world has changed from unipolar to multipolar, the BRICS, right? Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia joining the BRICS. These countries, right? The world, right, doesn't view, it's not just the U.S. dollar anymore. They don't necessarily want, do you think Russia is rushing to the U.S. dollar right now because of all the craziness going on in the world? What about Saudi Arabia? We know. Hello, Jake's Custom Parts. Good to see you. Mary Radcliffe, I'm sorry, I got off track. I like to say hi to you guys. But anyway, we know, right? Those countries don't want to, it's changed. Something has changed. When we went from being unipolar, the United States ruling the world, to multipolar, now when big events happen, instead of people rushing and flocking to the US dollar and flocking to the treasury bonds, not that that's not going to happen to a certain degree, but now a lot of these countries, they don't want to buy dollars. They don't want to buy treasuries. What options do they have? Think about this. Put on your thinking cap. If you're in Saudi Arabia and you think, oh boy, the poop's hitting the fan, baby. We got trouble in River City, right? What are we going to do? We need to move our investments to more safe options. Well, we don't want to buy dollars. We know they're going down in value. We know the United States can seize them if they don't like us. We don't want to buy treasuries. Same thing there. What are these countries? What's the safe haven? It's not the Chinese yuan. No, it's not the Japanese yen. It's not the euro, bureau, duro. No. What are they going to do with their money? What's the most liquid form? What's the time-tested safe haven asset? They don't want to buy dollars. Right? We know that. We know the world is de-dollarizing. Okay? They don't want to buy treasury. What are they going to buy? Come on, think about it. It's going to push more money into precious metals, guys. I had not thought about that. I don't know if you'd thought about that, but in this context, if this had happened 20 years ago, everybody in the world runs to dollars and treasuries. Now, not as many people run to dollars and treasury, and the people that aren't are looking for a safe haven. Again, what's been the safe haven asset that not just you, yes, you, not just you, but your great to the 90th degree grandpa could rely on? Do you think silver and gold might fit that bill? But it gets crazy, guys. So we have more money coming, but it gets absolutely crazy when you consider that it just takes a little bit of that money coming in to basically completely drain, liquid draino, right? Liquid gold drain the world of its silver supply and its gold supply, right? I mean, I hadn't thought about that. Have you thought about that? Where's now that the world doesn't want to run to dollars, where are they going to run? Again, they're not going to run to yen, euros, yuans, or Australian dollars. No offense to all our viewers in Australia, or Canadian dollars. No offense, or Mexican pesos. No, they're not, and they're not going to go. They're going to go to gold and silver. You know, and you talk about the world being drained of gold. I want to mention this quickly. Very quickly, okay? A couple things. Number one, China. Do you realize that if just 10% of the Chinese population, not 1.4 billion, just 140 million, and you check me on this if I'm wrong. Check me. I make mistakes, but I think this is absolutely accurate. I do have a degree in accounting from a prestigious university, and I did work for almost a whole year for one of the big four accounting firms, and I quit. They didn't fire me, believe it or not. Anyway, just 10% of the Chinese population, 10%, 140 million of them. If they bought 1 gram of gold, you know how much a gram of gold cost? If you convert some of your unicorn fart dust US dollars to gold, a gram of gold will cost you about $64.89, okay? 1 gram, 10% of the Chinese population, 1 gram of gold per month. That would suck in almost like 46.8% of the world's annual gold production. Guys, it doesn't take, what I'm trying to demonstrate for you in very clear terms, as clear of terms as I can, is the fact that it doesn't take much at all for the gold supply. And what about silver and the silver supply to get sucked out and there be nothing left? Remember what happened during the banking crisis back in March and April? It was all gone. Where'd all the silver go? It became like Bitcoin. You couldn't get it. It was imaginary, right? You could put it in order. You could buy some digital silver, but you couldn't find any real silver. or real gold. I think you could find some gold. I may be exaggerating. I can be prone to a bit of exaggeration, so bear with me. What we're trying to demonstrate here is it's a big deal, and I appreciate this Vince Lachey guy. I really like him. He is smart. LACCI. Again, that was on Arcadia Economics. I'll give credit where credit is due. Okay, and absolutely, something just that I think every silver and gold investor has to realize, that now that the world has changed, bifurcated. Remember, we learned that fancy word. Some of you new basement dwellers, that's part of the basement dweller verbal assault tool. Bifurcation. That means like splitting. So we could just say splitting. Now that the world is splitting, that other half, they don't want to buy dollars or treasuries. That's the big deal. And what are they going to buy? They're not going to buy each other's currencies. No, they don't trust each other either. They trust each other less than they trust the United States. But nonetheless, they're going to move to the metals. And boy, I'm telling you guys, it could be huge. Absolutely. We got more to cover. Oh my gosh. We got more to cover. Okay. All right. We're going to talk about the Fed next. But first, I want to tell you, yes, you, thanks for being here in the basement, right? We love to talk about silver, gold, the precious metals. I made some gold potatoes over the weekend. I told you guys, my 83-year-old dad, who's very honest with me, said they were the best potatoes he ever had in his life. Roasted yellow golden potatoes. And you know what the secret was? Right here. I got it. Weber Herb Garden. Okay? And I'll call my dad. I'll prove it to you. Roasted yellow potatoes with a little, I use canola oil because I'm too cheap to use olive oil. I'm frugal. Said they were the best potatoes he ever had in his life. Check it out. Give it a shot. It's easy peasy recipe. Back to gold, back to silver. Let's talk about the Fed. What would it mean? What do you think it would mean if the Fed officially started to pivot? And I've got some news I want to read to you here that's making things very interesting. And then I'm going to tell you what I think is going on with the Fed and what it means for the price of silver and gold as we move into the coming months, quarters, and years. Here, this is from Bloomberg. What cracked the Bloomberg dollar index? Thank you, Henny, for that super chat. Wow, Henny. Guys, I want to make it real clear, too. Super chats are awesome. Then I'm going to go to the Fed. Right? That's a way you can help support the channel. That's great. I appreciate it. It's never expected. Okay? Always appreciated. I give all my content away for free. Yes, you don't have to donate anything. I do have sponsors, right? First Mining Gold, Pimbex, Weber's helping us out. So, but the super chats go a long way to help support the channel. But it's never expected. Please, never donate anything that you can't afford or anything like that. But when they do, they help out, right? Because we're supporting the family with this channel. So thank you. I just wanted to say that. Number one, thank you. Now, I got to ring the cowbell. Then we're going to talk about the Fed. But first, the infamous 200 thumbs up cowbell right on top of Pinback. Don't forget, if you want to get yourself some gold, silver, or platinum, go to the best place in town. Where is it? Pinbex. P-I-M-B-E-X. Pinbex. Look, you're going to find they got the best prices, the best service. They're trustworthy. That's what I think you're going to find out, because that's what I found out. And I'm a very in-depth researcher before I do anything. And I bought silver from Pinbex before they sponsored the channel. So I'm a customer. I'm a happy customer. If you're looking for metal, throw them into the mix. I think you'll be very happy. Now, what's going on with Jerome? Should we get Jerome? Here, let's see. Here. It's been about a week. He needs a little air. Do not enter. Hey, it's Jerome. And look who's in there with him. His favorite, the little unicorn. Unicorn fart dust machine. Okay, what's going on with the Fed that's going to have a big impact on the silver and gold price? I'm going to buckle down here, so stay with me, okay? Multiple Fed speakers, such as Dallas Fed Lori Logan, Yes, that Lori Logan. Did you go to high school with her? And Fed vice chair, whatever a vice chair is, but the Fed vice chair, Philip Jefferson. I bet he went to a nice private high school. He was they echoed what the San Francisco. Well, they're just naming the whole, might as well just say the whole darn Federal Reserve at this point. San Francisco Fed, Mary Daly said on Friday, here's the key. Listen up, listen up, listen up. Suggesting that soaring 10-year yields, the term premiums, have done the Fed's tightening job for them. And no more hikes are coming. 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 This is how UBS's trading desk, UBS, one of those fancy financial services firms, this is what they said. They said, Fed Vice Chair Philip Jefferson sounds dovish. Dovish. Sorry, I'm yelling. He said he will remain cognizant of tightening financial conditions through higher bond yields and will keep that in mind when assessing the future path of policy. Also, he said the Fed is in a sensitive period of risk management. Oh, the Fed's in a real sensitive period, Jerome. I thought he looked like he was crying a little bit when we got him out. Where they may have to balance the risk of not having tightened enough against the risk of policy being too restrictive. You know what that's a fancy way of saying? The Fed's in a box. I told you guys, we talked about this 4 months ago when I put Jerome in a box. They're in a box. They got a recession on one side of the box, and they got inflation on the other side of the box. And when you put those two together, what do you get? You get stagflation. And when you get stagflation, what do you get? You get skyrocketing precious metals prices. Unfortunately, most people are not in tune like we are. Period. Okay? Most people are not in tune, all right, in harmony with us. I won't sing today, but when they catch on, the other people, they're like, I don't know how to say this, like they're asleep, okay? And when they start to wake up, like the people in Japan did, like a month and a half ago, when they started to wake up and say, oh, I need to buy some gold, it's going to be a mad rush. Because what we're hearing now out of the Fed is distinct, clear, I can't think of another word, communications to tell us that, oh, we're in a little bit of a pickle here, guys. So we want to communicate with you that, quite simply, we might have to pivot, basically. And when everybody else wakes up to what's going on, we aren't even talking about all the sheeple. We're talking about the smart segment of the sheeple that actually kind of sort of follows what's going on. Here's a good way to describe the people who spend an hour a day watching CNBC, and that's their only source of financial information. When that segment, and that's maybe like 6.4% of the U.S. population, wakes up to the fact that we got stagflation, we got big problems right now here in this country. And absolutely the Costco indicator. That's what I'm calling it. The Ron's Basement Costco indicator absolutely indicates that movement is starting to percolate. It's starting to percolate. It's like watching water boil for us because we know, right? We're watching it. It's like, when is it ever going to boil? Well, the little bubbles are starting to come up, okay? The little bubbles are starting to come up. It's going to happen, and it's going to happen before we know it. Did you hear? I had the article, but I had to pack my other display away, so I'm going to do this off memory. But J.P. Morgan, what do we know about J.P. Morgan? That they have manipulated, suppressed the price of metals forever. Goldman Sachs, they're in the same category, right? And Bank of America, they're not much better. We don't like. I can't speak for you, but I don't like the big banks. I don't think they really act in the best interest of their customers or the United States. I think they're greedy. Yeah. And I think they caused the great financial crisis and they didn't have any consequences for it. And I'm still mad about that, on top of about 68 other things I'm mad about. Okay? But, hello, Sorcerer. Thank you, Sorcerer Stan. Thank you guys for the super chats. Super appreciated. Never expected. Now, but recent news, okay? And there's a part of this that is just unbelievable. Okay, these companies that manipulate the price of silver and gold, do we trust them? JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and Bank of America basically fined for cheating their high-end customers on the swaps arrangement. Swaps are like, these fancy financial, kind of like derivatives, but swap market is, trade. It's very complicated, but it's for their high-end customers, okay? You and I don't do swaps, okay? We may swap friendship. We may swap a smile. Come on, smile. Feels good. And give me a thumbs up, man. That helps. That double feel good. Smile and thumbs up. But what we know, okay, is that they were required to report certain information to their swaps customers, and they didn't report it. They didn't report it to the CFTC. And what's unbelievable, and there's a lesson in this that I'm going to give you at the end. Sorry, I pointed at you. I'll point at you again. There's a lesson. There's a lesson. You listen right now. Goldman Sachs, the CF said that the Goldman Sachs had over a million violations, okay, of this. Over 1 million times they basically broke the law. Goldman Sachs. Now, here's the lesson when we're talking about JP Morgan. This is I'd be curious how you feel about this, but I think, what is this telling us? And it's this: if they're willing to cheat their high-end customers, right, the guys that do the swaps, that buy the swaps and all that, what do you think they're doing to the average Joe? Do you think they'd be, oh no, we're going to steal from the rich and give to the poor, the Robin Hoods? Do you think? No. If they'll steal from their high-end customers, you better believe they'll stick the screws to you and me in a heartbeat and not feel one iota of remorse. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. These people, I'm going to call it like I see it. And that's okay. You don't have to believe. I don't care if they're mad at me. They send me a letter saying, you said bad things about Goldman Sachs. We're mad at you. Please stop. No. If they're willing to put the screws to their high-end customers, what do you think they're going to do? These are the companies that were, JP Morgan, our government. If the government could successfully prove that they were manipulating the price of precious metals for decades, get a conviction, sentencings. I think they already sentenced those guys as well. What do you think's really going on? That's the tip of the iceberg, baby. Ice, baby. That's the tip of the iceberg. That's like when Jerome Powell talks. He's giving you the tip of the iceberg. I wonder what they're talking about at the Fed right now, behind the scenes. They're scared. This is new territory for them, like they have never seen before. All right, we got more to talk about. We're going to talk about we're going to get sophisticated. The Penn Wharton, I got to read this. University of Pennsylvania had something to say about the state of the United States fiscal situation, and this absolutely has everything to do with the future of the gold and silver price. Let's all have a little break and take a sip of coffee, and I'm going to also be waiting for us to get to 300 thumbs up. Thank you all, almost 500 of you, for being here this morning. By the way, has anybody found the hot dog yet? I wasn't paying attention. Does anybody see the hot dog? I hid the hot dog. I hid my wiener for you. It's in plain view, if you could see it. Hello, Annie Oakley. Hello, Cone Shop Chris, Jake's Custom Parts. Thank you thank you, Shadow Work, for the super chat. Thank you to all you guys, Rich Clark, everybody who's here, okay, and supporting the channel, Susie and I. And yes, we do support our family off this channel. It's an interesting way. You never know what can happen. Let me briefly say this, guys. You never know what can happen in life. I'm 53 years old. If 30 years ago you would have told me that I would have this awesome experience connecting with people like you all over the world, right? Through my basement, through I'll be honest with you, you can probably tell I don't have the world's most expensive camera and a nice little microphone. I wouldn't have believed it. So you never know what can happen in life. Interesting things can happen, but you're not here to hear me reminisce or talk sweet or anything like that. All right, yes, you guys found it. There's the wiener. There's my wiener. I'll try to hide it next time. We're going to talk about the Penn Wharton University of Pennsylvania. And they said something that should scare the living daylights out of any American, anyone who cares about their children or grandchildren or anything like that. This is not very pleasant to hear. But there's something in here that, again, it was new information to me, and we always want to consider both sides of the coin, pardon the pun, and I'll explain that to you here. Let me read this to you. The PWBM, Penn Wharton, whatever, even under myopic expectations, financial markets cannot sustain more than the next 20 years of accumulated deficits projected under the current U.S. fiscal policy. We cannot go on the way we're going on. Forward-looking financial markets are, therefore, effectively betting that future fiscal policy will provide substantial corrective measures ahead of time. If financial markets started to believe otherwise, okay, it's a con game. The Fed is a con game, confidence. If markets started to believe otherwise, debt dynamics would, quote unquote, unravel and become unsustainable much sooner. It says the U.S. public debt is over $33 trillion, but that's largely misleading. Okay, this is interesting. Because it includes almost $7 trillion that the federal government, quote unquote, owes itself due to trust fund and other accounting, which I don't really understand, but I'm going to believe these guys because they're the Penn Wharton, Pennsylvania, whatever, School of Business. The economics profession has long focused on debt held by the public. Oh, don't forget, we're going to stay on track, Susie's getting mad at me for getting off track, but I got one more thing about the silver market in particular and the gold market. That's the double whammy, knock your socks off, we're going to talk about after this, because there's something very interesting that everybody forgets about and is great news for the market. Okay. Everybody's focused on debt held by the public, currently equal to 98% of GDP, $26 billion. So that part of the national debt that the government apparently owes itself, when you take that out, our debt to GDP is still at about 98%. This says we estimate that the U.S. debt held by the public cannot exceed 200% of GDP, even under today's generally favorable market conditions. Larger ratios in countries like Japan's able to do it because everybody has savings saved up. Under current policy, the United States has about 20 years for corrective action, after which no amount of future tax increases or spending cuts could avoid the government defaulting on its debt. So basically, what they're telling us is under the best of circumstances, we got 20 years. The talk is clicking. The talk is clicking. The clock is ticking. Or is it the talk? We're going to say the talk is clicking. The talk is clicking. We're in trouble. And that's under the best of circumstances. Basically, what they say is once the market loses confidence, and think about the major things going on in the world, right? That's when the debt collapses. That's when potentially the dollar collapses. Okay, it's going to happen in 20 years. And if everything remains rosy, but black swans, right? The world changing, becoming multipolar, that's when the dollar can collapse. That's when the debt can collapse. That's when a loaf of bread costs you $15 at your local grocery store. But you're okay because you have a couple ounces of silver that are now worth, in dollar terms, $150 per ounce. Okay? Because you decided to protect yourself. Okay? Now, when we look at this scenario, again, that's based upon confidence being lost. All right, we got 300 thumbs up. I'm going to ring the bell with my nose. And then we got the big feature, something that I haven't heard people talk about, anybody talk about for maybe a year, that is still definitely in play and still absolutely points to fertile environment for the silver and gold price going forward. One, two. Let's get a last one. Good. Okay. 3 rings of the bell with my nose. You know, that's a tradition here in the basement. So I was reading yesterday. We know the situation with the silver market in particular. The amount of silver that was produced last year was a decrease. That's from the Silver Institute. We know they're even projecting this year even less silver is going to be produced. Gold is roughly in the same environment. I'm not absolutely sure what the gold numbers are. However, we haven't heard this talked about, and it's something that's going on right now. I read it in a piece of analysis from one of the top analysts. Nobody's talking about this. Remember the term peak oil, right? Like the world oil production had peaked and now it's going down. We have also likely reached peak silver in particular. And as we move into these next 10 years, I know it's a simple, broad term, but nobody's talking about it anymore. As we move into these coming 5-10 years, peak silver, peak oil, that was real popular, right? And for a little while, we heard about peak gold and peak silver. But we most likely have absolutely reached peak silver. Think about it. The numbers right now are decreasing, but what's even more important is what's in the pipeline, what's being fed into the future development numbers for silver. And it takes just a quick glance to realize that nobody, very few companies, very few, and I've been buying some lately. I bought some Capitan Silver, what's the other one? Silver Mountain, Suma Silver. Made some, for me, starter positions. There's very few companies out there that are developing pure or exploring for pure silver projects. I mean, feels like a handful. So as the current production is going down, in the few companies that actually do produce silver right now, right? First Majestic, Fortuna, which has become more of a gold mining company, right? Is their production's going down and they don't have a pipeline of new projects coming in, while simultaneously, everybody is saying demand for silver is going up, up, up. Guys, it paints a very supportive picture for the silver price going forward. Look, we don't know. We don't have a crystal ball, but we can look at the big facts, the numbers. And the numbers say, yeah, we need all this extra silver for the solar industry, for the defense industry, for everything else. Okay? And then we can look and say, okay, where's that silver going to come from? There's the pipeline of future projects is like a trickle. We need a big flow going through the pipeline to supply what the demand is that we have coming in the future. But the pipeline is just a trickle, right? They got the valve as open as it can be, but there's nobody putting anything into the pipeline because it doesn't make economic sense. The only thing that's going to fix that is price, our value. Not so much price, because silver, the dollar could collapse and silver could go to $160. But if it still cost 170 to get it out of the ground, well, that's not going to fix it. It's the relative value of silver that we talk about so often. That will fix that situation. And nobody's talking about peak silver. And have we reached peak silver? A lot of people think that we have. You know, and if you think that they're going to find more silver, they can't turn the spigot on. It doesn't work that way. All right, guys, thank you for being here today. I want to say hi and thank you to all the moderators. Jake's here, Annie's here, Jim M is here, of course. Coin Shop Chris is here. You're here, right? You want to say hi? You know what? I haven't done this for a while. Tell me where you're joining us from, and I will do my best. Thank you, Sassy Silver. Hey, Ricky's House of Crap. Good to see you. Jake's Custom Parts. Guys, please say thank you to all the moderators. They do an awesome job to make this happen, okay? The Lone Ranger knows the value of silver. Washington State. Coin Shop Chris is on the moon. I'm going to say as many as I can. Ireland, Paducah, Arizona. Oh, my gosh, Jacksonville. Missouri, Trenton, Aston, Pennsylvania, Vernon, BC, Missouri down the road, Texas, Springs, Arizona, Nova Scotia, Canada, New York City. Think of where we're all from. Nottingham, England. That's awesome. Sun City, Arkansas, Silver Shortage, Basement Dwellers, Oregon, UK, for my sins. Good to see you, my friend. South Dakota, West Virginia, Atlanta, Sweden, Minnesota, Southern California. Jim M., my friend, Louisville, Nottingham, Swampy, Florida, Ontario, Canada, the moon, bye, Mary. Guys, this has been awesome. Vancouver. I'll see you tomorrow morning. Have a good day, okay? You are important, and you're a big part of the basement dweller. Have a great day. I'll see you soon.